Yo, what's up guys? Today I've got some pretty insane hide and seek spots to show you that were found by me along with the help of my Discord community. Anyways, enjoy. Our first spot of the video is found in Metro Kingdom. This spot is a variation of a spot from one of my previous videos. See, using the scooter's weird hitbox you can stay on this tiny edge, however it's almost too difficult to make the spot worth it. Luckily, we have a solution. By jumping off of this wall and sliding down as far to the left as possible, you can ledge grab on this tiny sliver of collision. Let's just take a second to realize what hide and seek has come to. Poor Mario is clinging for his life. I do think this spot is better than the other variations since not only is it easier, but it's also less visible from the island, which was the main thing hindering the previous version of the spot. Unfortunately, there's not any way to escape from this spot since you're unable to move unless you drop down. However, I think this still is a spot good enough to be used without an escape route. This next spot requires you to use the letter glitch. Now, before you say anything, Smant has used this glitch before during a hide and seek round, which makes it justifiable. I'm not going to take the time to explain how this glitch works since I'm sure that most of you are familiar with it, and if you want to learn how to do it, there's definitely tons of YouTube tutorials out there. Just make sure that you use the letter A for this spot since you need the letter to be a specific height. Now, once you've clipped the A outside of the park boundary, you'll need to bring it over to the Dino Subarea entrance where you'll need to run full speed into the door to force the A inside. Just make sure not to go too far or you'll go into the loading zone by accident. Now, we can uncapture to stand on top of the A, and if we go in snapshot mode, we can see that Mario is entirely hidden behind this wall. This is a really good spot since the camera lock makes you entirely covered, though you're still technically within the rules by being visible. If you're thinking that the letter being in the doorway makes this blatantly obvious, remember that this doesn't show up on other players' screens. This isn't really the type of spot you'd escape from since there's no way for you to know whether someone's actually going for you or they're just trying to enter the sub area, so I'd stand my ground no matter what. You can actually go a bit further into the door, but like I said before, be careful not to go too far, you'll accidentally end up in the Dino sub area. Speaking of the Dino sub area, I actually have a pretty crazy spot there to show you. I'm not gonna lie, that was a W transition. I think that deserves a sub. So this spot requires some setup, but it's pretty easy. Usually we would take the scooter, but for this spot you're gonna want to leave it and instead go down to this first set of flags. Be ready because as soon as you go past this first set of flags, the dinosaur will spawn in and you'll have to jump back to the starting platform. That's basically the whole setup. Now all you have to do is chill at the start and wait for this music to end. Once the music's over, you can come back over to this first set of flags where you'll notice that the platform doesn't regenerate. Or does it? By vaulting to clear this first section of the road, you can actually find that the entire sub area is still here, except now the dino isn't chasing you and the platforms don't fall like they usually do. This means that you have freedom to run around the entire sub area and you don't even need to hide. If someone's coming at you, you can just backflip and jump backwards and they won't be able to get you since the platforms have already disappeared on their screen. This spot is already insane, but it gets better. You can easily get up onto any of these flags now, whereas you would usually have to do it first try. This also means that if you're a seeker that's struggling to get someone on a flag, you could do this too. This spot has an uncapped potential due to its versatility, not to mention that you can easily escape out of either end of the sub area if, for whatever reason, you get tired of running around. This next spot is honestly one of the best spots that we've found due to it not only being well hidden but also insanely difficult. See, around the outside of the Lava Rising sub area there are these massive walls, and I've always thought that there might be some way to scale them, and if you could, then it would be a crazy spot. Sadly, it never seemed even close to possible with the available tech, but thankfully some people are built different. This is far above my skill level, but by constantly stalling and diving into the slope with nearly perfect timing, you can slowly gain height. Once you reach this point, you have to switch to a smaller slope where you can do a couple more dives to reach the top. I'd love to see this spot used in the actual game of hide and seek just because I'm curious how long it would actually last, though I doubt that it'll ever happen. Okay, so in the last video I showed how you can use the Goomba to climb the volcano in Luncheon Kingdom. I did this since I knew that there were probably a couple of spots to be found using this tech, and I was right. If you didn't already know, you can use the Goomba to climb the volcano by spamming the Y button on the volcano slope. To get to the spot that we're going to, you'll want to go left and then down to this flatter area. Here I'm just turning the camera so it's easier to see what's going on, though this is kind of risky because if you do it at the wrong spot you could end up losing control of the Goomba and sliding off the volcano. Lucky for us, the Goomba gets stuck in this specific spot, meaning that we can uncapture to regain control. Just make sure to start spamming again the moment you enter it or you'll end up sliding down like this. Thankfully I went over the edge and was able to regain control again, and we can now head over to our spot. Now that you're here, you do still need to continue spamming the Y button into this wall to stay on the slope, though if you were to have a turbo controller or another way to press the Y button without exhausting your hand, that would be preferred. If we ignore the fact that you have to have some way to spam, this is a really good spot. The wall shields you from above and the platforms on the sides are far enough away that they won't notice you. My favorite part about this spot is the fact that your escape route is just scurrying up the volcano as a Goomba. I just think it would be funny to see Goombas chasing each other. Next up, we're headed to Bowser's Kingdom where we have 2 new Pokey spots. I've known about this first one for a while, but I just never ended up putting in a video for whatever reason. Well, until now. After bringing the Pokey over to this roof, you can drop down below it just enough to where you can slide underneath. For how small this roof is, it does a surprisingly good job at hiding the Pokey since you're covered from almost every angle. And I mean, even here, I feel like they'd have their camera tilted up to where they couldn't even see you. By the way, if you were wondering, the holes where the Pokey pokes into the wall don't show up on other people's screens, meaning that they don't give this away. Escaping from the spot might be a bit tight, but I think it's possible if you have some crazy reaction time. If you do manage to get out, then you'll have no choice but to rush the pipe on the first island, because if you aren't fast enough, then the Seekers will just camp the wires, leaving you stuck with only one island to run around on. Our second Pokey spot is nearby the outer wall checkpoint, and for this one you're going to need to bring the Pokey over to the roof where Captain Toad sits. Similarly to the previous spot, you need to drop down as far as you can without falling, and once you do, you're able to bend the Pokey below the larger roof to your left. There is a slight problem with this spot since you have to bend your beak and that makes noise. This will only really work with Capture Sync off. Nevertheless, like the last spot, the roof hides you pretty well, especially since with Capture Sync off you'll appear as a floating Mario instead of a thick Pokey. There is a chance that you'll get seen from below, but most of the time people check Bowser's Kingdom from top to bottom, plus who's really going to be scanning the roofs from below? Since I went into snapshot mode, I kinda cooked myself, but if you needed to escape you definitely could. Your best route would probably be to go across the lower distant roof where you can take the rocket flower across and hopefully make it into the slingshot. We have one more Bowser's Kingdom spot, but this one is a bit different than the usual. Honestly, this spot might be awful, but I think it's hilarious. So basically we're going to be going inside of this distinguished gentleman. In order to do this, all you have to do is jump up behind him onto the bench that he's sitting on and Mario will do the rest. I mean, if Fur can get away with hiding behind the crazy cap sign, then I feel like you should be able to get away with this. You can mess with this a bit to get Mario more centered, however sadly there's no way to become fully concealed. This spot does give you plenty of time to escape, however there aren't really any places from here to go to stall other than maybe the Jizo sub area, though just trying to run through the kingdom backwards would probably be better. Today we actually only have one moon cave spot, and for this one we're going to be going through the front entrance. This spot uses an infinite height glitch involving the dry bones, and this glitch is actually really easy. All you need to perform it is a steep slope. After you've captured a dry bones, bring it over to this pillar, which is perfect for performing the glitch. Now all you need to do is get into a rhythm of flying into the slope. You can't go too fast or too slow or you'll slide down, and this will take a while, but once you get onto the pillar you have free access to the entire upper layer. Some of you may know that people have already used this glitch to hide, but I'm going to show a spot up here that I think has been entirely overlooked. If you fly over to this far corner, you'll see that there's a gap where you can drop down, and from here you're just kind of set as long as you don't get too close to the walls or don't go too far down. I personally never even considered that you could hide down here since I just assumed that the death plane was much closer, but it turns out that this works and you're hidden extremely well, so unless someone is intentionally checking the outside of the walls, you will not be spotted. You can definitely escape from here as long as you're smart about it, and you could farm tons of time just by flying away and stalling. Just don't accidentally hit the lava like I did. Our last spot of the video is in Mushroom Kingdom. There aren't really many good hiding spots in Mushroom just due to it being mostly open flat land and all but 2 of the sub areas being single rooms. These are the boss fight rooms, and their only real purpose is to serve as a gateway to their respective boss fights. You would never think that there would be a hiding spot in here, however it turns out that these windows are actually standable. You do have to hold forward while you're up here because of how small this ledge is, and even then it's still kind of janky and doesn't always want to work, but once you manage to get onto it, then I think you could stay up here. You just have to keep adjusting. I think this spot is good since no one's going to be thoroughly checking these rooms, and since there's so many of them, once they check it once, it's unlikely that they'll go back and check it again. That's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I just created a membership tier, so if you want to support me along with getting to watch these videos before they release to get the hiding spots early, then I would really appreciate that. I'd also like to mention that I have a Discord server where you can share spots to potentially get them in a video, or if you just want to hang out and chat, that's cool too. That's all I've got for now. See you in the next one.